Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and this is Poly Hector. And there's a cat hair on it. Just fix that. There we go. Poly Effects has unleashed Hector upon us. Hector is a touchscreen virtual modular environment. I've done a video on its predecessor, the pedal version called Bebo. In this one, we combine a robust modular effect system with modulation and generation. We have ports of Mutable Instrument stuff, and it's just chock full of really cool stuff. So today I want to show you why I think this is probably a really good choice if you are considering getting into modular. And I'm going to do that by focusing on the Mutable Instruments ports that are in here and using what we see in front of us to just create some interesting stuff and explore what's available in that respect. I will not be covering everything in this. I just kind of want to focus on the MI ports and some of the other things I need to make those work. And if you want to check out my previous video on Bebo, go ahead. I also know that Lupop has a very thorough video on the Hector that you can go watch as well. So today we'll be focusing on MI ports, creating sounds, sequencing, and using everything you see in front of you to, modularize, I guess. So let's get started. So, there is the ability in the settings to flip the screen to make the interface go the other way. And you can also go from left to right to left, like the original Bebo was. So we are going from ins to outs here. So the first thing I'm going to want is some form of sequencer. And I'm going to go into Add Module and Favorites and find a sequencer. I'm going to use the Chaos Controller. Chaos Controller is a port of Mutable Instruments Marbles, which is a probabilistic sequence generator that has a bunch of different options. So what we need to do first is get this some clock. And I have Pamela's new workout over here for that. Pam's is always a great addition to any rack, and even in a small system does a lot of work for us. So I'm going to take the output of Pam's and I'm going to put it into in1. I'm also going to take the second output of Pam's and put it into in2. And what that's going to do is give us two clock signals here that I will be able to adjust however I want. So in order to connect connections, I have to pick the in1, boop. And I'm going to click the T clock trigger input. That's the trigger input on Marbles to clock the trigger section of this, the left side of the gate generation. And then 2, I'm going to go in here and choose X clock input. Awesome. So obviously you're not going to hear anything even if we push start, but we can now start adding some oscillators to this. And provided in Hector here is a port, favorites, M. We have a port of Mutable Instruments plots, which is super cool. So in order to get this going, let's go ahead and connect these two. And there's a couple ways we can connect it. So you can see we have the outputs here. We're going to choose trigger 1 output and connect it to the trigger in of plots. Okay. We also need pitch. So let's connect this to the pitch input of plots. So that's the X output. It's pitch, volt per octave CV. So this will teach you a lot about how modular works. You'll learn the terminologies and stuff like that, which I think is really, really important. It's a system of language that you need to sort of become familiar with. And this gives you a lot of options to do that, a lot of ways to explore those things. So now if I was to connect this to the output, here, I'll have two choices. Plots has two outputs, an aux output and a main output. So we'll choose the main output. And now you can see out 1. I can plug it into my mixer. And if we hit play, we should hear something. Let's see. What size cable do I want for this? All right. Nothing. Oh, there it is. So let's go ahead and speed this up a little bit and change what we're doing here. It's not going to sound like much right now. I'm going to change this to ×1. And the X voltage, I'm going to choose pentatonic. And spread. So now you can hear we're getting clock changes and pitch changes. Doesn't really sound like much, right? I'm going to actually add a quantizer between these two, and that's because that will allow me to pick very specific pitches. So I'm going to undo the connections here by pressing this little button down here, this break connection button. And I'm going to say the volt per octave, you can go and then back. So let's go into our settings here and go to my favorites. And we're going to hit Q and there's a quantizer. A quantizer takes incoming voltage and turns it into stepped pitch voltage. Very useful for creating custom scales. So we'll connect these two. We're going to use the pitch out, boopity boop boop, 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 boop. Oh, that's X1. And then we'll connect these two again. Boop. And output. Okay, cool. and volt per octave. So now we have a quantizer in between. Let's go ahead and hit play again and listen to what we can do with the quantizer. So right now, all of these notes are representative. It is adhering it to a scale. It just happens to be a full chromatic scale. So I'm going to go for the easy mode and get rid of everything but the black notes. Now you can hear that we have something that resembles music. You know, sort of. In here, we have all kinds of cool options. So Marbles has different ways of doing its triggers. You can jitter it. And with the X voltage, we can spread it. Let's go ahead and turn the quantizer off. Let's go back. Make it smooth. That's pretty cool, right? If we go over here to our PAMs, remember this is our clock for the triggers, so we can change this. Let's change this to a rhythm. I'm going to create a Euclidean rhythm in PAMs. Let's go over to 2. I'm going to reset this. Let's make a rhythm over here as well. Now, there is a Euclidean rhythm generator in here. It's actually really pretty. Let me show it to you real quick. There's some really wonderful, wonderful interfaces in this. Look at that. That's beautiful. But we're not going to be using that. I want to be using PAMs. But you can generate Euclidean stuff in here. And keep in mind that while we're using this to generate sequences and sounds within it, all of this stuff can be applied to external stuff too. So you can use Marbles in here to drive your external oscillator. So you can use a Euclidean pattern generator to drive either triggers like for drum events or anything like that externally. So very important to keep in mind that while I'm showing you one particular way to use this in a self-contained manner, everything that we're doing can be sent as audio or voltage out to whatever you want. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of vibe to this, a little bit of reverb, okay? So I'm going to go into plus, and I'm going to go into favorites, and I'm looking for the looping delay. This is one of the parasites modes on Mutable Instruments clouds. Because Mutable Instruments offers all their stuff as open source, there's been a lot of really cool alternative firmware, and the Matthias Busch Parasites firmware is some of the most amazing stuff out there. It blows open the way that clouds works, and the looping delay is one of the things that we get from that. So what we're going to do here is connect to left in, and we're going to use the aux out actually for the right in. We're going to do this for all of our modules that we're going to add. And then I'm going to send this looping delay output to 2 and 3. And we're going to make it 100% wet. We're going to go in here and change the blend to 100. So now we've just basically created an aux send here on channels 2 and 3. So let's get that plugged in. We're not going to hear anything until we get it plugged in. Dupe and dupe. Y'all ever just dupe? Sometimes I just dupe. Cool. So we can clock that. Let's go ahead and do that. So we set up 2 Euclidean rhythms up here. They're not going to be great for clock, so let's use 5. I'm going to change this back to 4 pulses per quarter note. And we will connect 5 with the looping delay. And we'll go down to the trigger input, and we're going to hear this snap into time. So I just want you to keep in mind what we've done here is set up, now we have a sequencer, we have an instance of plots, and we have an effect. And again, all of this doesn't have to be used in the way that we're doing it. You can decide to use this as like a triple marbles if you want. You can have like 3 marbles and have them go out to run your whole rack. You can have a combination of marbles, the Euclidean, and a step sequencer and have those run out to your whole rack. You can set up multiple effect sends like looping delay, clouds, the Ollie verb, an algorithmic reverb, whatever the CPU allows you to, and then you can send stuff in and out. So think of Hector here, what I'm showing you is the self-contained version of the possibilities here. Everything that you see can be connected I/O-wise, and you can just do a lot with it, and that's why I think this is a really interesting first choice for people who maybe want to get into modular. It's very visual, and while you don't get the hands-on control that you would strictly with like actual modules, I'm going to show you how we can actually get that in just a smidge. Actually, I'm going to show you that right now. In 2 ways. Okay, so you'll notice I have the launchpad over here. That's because if I go into this, I'm going to go to, I believe it's modulation. Okay, so within plots, there's a VCA. That means that there is a built-in thing that creates an envelope and adjusts the volume. This is why we're hearing just a pluck right now, as opposed to, let's see. Oh, no, I'm not going to mess with it. But if I took out the trigger VCA, it would just continually run. It'd be a self-running oscillator, and then we'd have to use a VCA and an envelope to get that to go. But there is a built-in VCA, and you can hear the decay right here. Now, that's very nice to be able to modulate. And in fact, on the original Plaits module, you can't really easily do that. You have to press down a little button, and then you get access to it. So it's cool that it's right here, but what I've noticed is we can't access that via an in point. And I'll show you what I mean by that, and then we'll move on to modulating that specifically. So over here, I have Triat. I'm going to plug Triat into in4. Triat, when nothing is plugged into this side, creates a voltage, basically. It creates a 0 to 5 volt voltage, I believe. And we can use this to modulate things in here. So let's go ahead and pick a thing to modulate. We'll go to tone and play with some of these and hear what they sound like. I don't want to mess with that one. That one's pretty good. I like both of those. So let's take note. Timbre and morph. So what we're going to do is find that 4 in and attach it to our macro OSC. And we're going to do morph. And we're going to also do 5. Whoops. Back. 4, 2, timbre. Okay, there we go. So let's go back into here, and we'll go turn this down again. Go to modulation, turn up morph, and timbre. When something's plugged into the CV jacks for a modulation thing, it starts to ignore the internal envelope. Otherwise, it will respond to the envelope to modulate these things. But look. Now, they're not moving. Unfortunately, that'd be really cool. But it does save on CPU for them not moving. But we have control now of these two things. It's pretty, right? Once you reach a certain amount of CPU, you will see a CPU warning. Right now we are at 62%. So we'll just keep an eye on that. But that's how you can get external control into here. And we can do that with all kinds of stuff. So let's do that again with an LFO. I'm going to grab this LFO right here. You can see PAM6 is blink. I don't know if you can see that. Here, can you see? PAM6 is like a chill LFO right there. This one right here. 6 into the chaos controller. And I want to play with bias here. Because bias does fun things to the gate controls. So up one way, it's going to do one thing. And down the other way, it's going to do another thing. And we can get really interesting with this. So as this is high, the bias will be high. As this is low, the bias will be low. PAM spits out a 0 to 5 volt positive output. So that's something to keep in mind with modulation. That's why I keep pulling this all the way down, because I want the modulation to occur from the lowest point that I want it at. So that's what's going on with that. But now we have some cool modulation, right? And we still have this. Okay, cool. One more thing, and then I want to add another oscillator. So let me talk to you about the way that we can get at stuff in here that maybe not be accessible via CV, and that is via Midi. So I'm going to go into modulation here. I want access to this decay thing here. If I hold this down and press this, I get a new menu. You little bitch. If I hold this down and press this, I get a new menu. This is where you can actually put a value in for whatever you want, which is really nice sometimes if you want to zero it out or add your own custom value. It's nice to have this menu. You can also create a little spotlight that has a series of controls. I'm going to go ahead and do that just because, to show you what that looks like. So you can create a spotlight of controls that you can then easily touch and manipulate from the front panel. So what I'm curious here about is Midi. And before I hit that, I want to tell you what's going on over here. This is Innovation Launchpad Pro. The Innovation Launchpad Pro allows you to set up what are called custom modes. So at custom mode, you can set up like sliders or buttons or a variety of controls that are assigned to a particular Midi control change number. So I have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can see that I have some slider controls here. And we're going to use this to manipulate things in our Hector. You okay with that, Hector? All right. So all I have to do is hit Midi and then hit this. I don't know about you, but I think that's really damn cool because we can combine control voltage and Midi. Anything that can send out Midi CCs should work with this because it just auto maps. Pretty cool, right? So what else could we do with this? Well, let's go into here and see if there's anything we want to play with here. That's pretty cool. Should we set reverb to that? Let's go ahead and go like this. I really like that. I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick before I go forward. Okay, so to save, first I'm going to enter a description. I'm going to say, you look great. Then I'm going to go and hit this button, and I'm going to say, save current preset. Save as new. Wow, I sound like Gravel all of a sudden. Preset name. You look great. That's not an 8, you idiot. Okay, cool. So now if I go back into the preset manager, I can say load preset. I can say mine, and I will have all my presets, or if I've favorited them, I can go to favorites and do that. So that's how that works. Pretty simple. Okay, so the thing about Marbles, or the Chaos Controller, as it's called here, is that it actually has 3 separate outs. It can send data to 3 different synthesizers, or it can be used to send modulation and pitch data. Because we have this quantizer here, and we basically set this to unquantized, or we can send it to unquantized. This could be used for modulation as well. But what I want to do is add another voice so you can hear how that sounds. And I want to show off that we have access to one of my favorite modules of all time. And that is, there it is. It's rings. It's Mutable Instruments rings. We have ports of marbles, plots, rings, tides, warps, and clouds, and grids, which I forgot to also mention. It has grids in here, which is super cool, including most of the Parasite firmware. And if that doesn't wet your whistle to be able to like load all those up in one pedal in this small sort of thing, then, I think I can't help you, because I think that's really cool. Okay, let's get rings going. So, I'm going to move my looping delay down here, my mooping delay, and put Macroosc up here. We're going to need another quantizer. So, I'm going to add Q favorites quantizer. The nice thing about doing multiple quantizers is you can choose what different scale mask you want, meaning whether or not you want the same series of notes to play. So right here, we've chosen all the black notes, but I could go like this, and it would only play those 2. And we could pick other notes from that scale in this one. So let's try that. Okay, cool. So remember, we need to connect our Chaos Controller to the quantizer. We'll use the X2 output, that's our second pitched output, and we will connect the trigger output, which is T2, to this. And we will need to change that to strum. That is the thing that tells rings to excite and make ring sounds. So let's make our plots small over here. And we are going to connect this to our output, like this. Now, rings is a little different than plots in that it actually has a stereo output, or an even odd voice output, because it can be polyphonic. So where can we put that? I guess we can put that on 4 and 5. So we need to patch that, obviously. Let's go ahead and do that now. I'm not hearing anything quite. Oh, I know we're not hearing anything. Because we have to go in and change our polyphony mode. Now look at these, look at this. Look at this really cool interface that's been created here. Loki put a lot of work into this, the creator, and just in my small amount of working with him via Bebo in this, I can tell that he's very, very dedicated to this project, and it's very cool to see. Okay, let's dial in our settings for this a bit. Oh, let's get it. Oh, sorry, I'm an idiot. Let's get it attached to the looping delay first. So now we have a little mixing desk over here, which is kind of cool. I love that. And let's get, I want to show you that we can add a beat to this. So we're going to add out 6. Hopefully this works. We might be too close to CPU usage for this to work. So we're going to use our last input here, and we're going to go to 4. All right, so the cool thing about plots is that it actually has a drum mode. So what we can do is give ourselves a little bass drum. I'm going to go into our multi-resonator. I'm going to go into tone, and I'm going to assign 2 here to dampening. Oh, like this. Okay, let's get that kick drum going. So 4 is going into 5. We're going to go 5, macro osc, trigger. That's all we need. And then we'll take this to our last output here on 6. And we're going to use both outputs because the aux output for the kick drum is really nice sounding. Now we need to go into here and change our port, or excuse me, not our port. There it is. So that's today's video on the Poly Hector. It's so cool. We've used a small amount of the modules in here when it comes to the Mutable Instruments ports. There are a ton more. I recommend that you head on over to the website and just take a peek, take a gander at the manual, because that'll give you a really good understanding of what's available in here. As I said in the beginning, I truly believe that this is a really great way to get into modular. I don't know how much this entire system right here costs. This can be replaced with anything that does a 10U version, but also spits out a voltage like maths. There's a lot of things that just spit out negative to positive voltage. I just happen to have a bunch of triads because they're really, really useful in that respect. PAMs here, I'd recommend anyone get this anyways, so not a big deal. This Midi out right here, this little thing right here, this will give us the ability to easily sync like a drum machine to this, and I had planned on doing that for this, but I think we've already filmed for enough. So you can do Midi out to a drum machine and then like use this to make all your cool modular sounds, and use the drum machine to do all your drums. Launchpad Pro has a lot of uses in a studio. This custom mode has been a constant useful thing for me, and I will show off that like this sequencer will work with this. So you can sequence the stuff going on in here from here, which is really, really neat. And you can also play it from the note mode if you want. There's a MIDI in on here, and it just works. So very cool, right? I hope this has whetted your appetite for what's possible with this. We are at the upper end of what we can do CPU-wise, but take stock of what we have in here. We have a Mutable Instruments Marbles, we have 2 quantizers, we have 2 instances of Mutable Instruments Plots, we have rings, and we have clouds. Add up how much that costs, and then decide whether or not this is a good idea for you. I know VCV Rack exists, I know other things exist, but like having it all in here and being able to manipulate it with internal stuff, but also with external stuff, is really cool. And if we slow down our tempo, we can go ambient. Okay, that's enough. Thanks for watching. I hope this was fun. I will do another video or two on some of the other stuff that's in here, like rings into clouds, and the Mutable Instruments grids, which I forgot to also mention. It has grids in here, which is super cool. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope this was fun for you. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording. And I hope you have a wonderful day.